Good morning, YouTube. Atheist Chef here. Now, ThickShades, young Earth creationist Christian YouTuber, he has made a video today about the shrinking of the moon and signs how the moon is younger than we think it is because it's alive, and of course I'm going to cover that. But most of his theory, speculation, that's a good word, speculation. His speculation has been basically covered by the young Earth creationist and then completely refuted by actual scientists for a long time. Now, apparently, since he hasn't read that article or any of the real science involved in showing why that is a not correct statement, I'm going to talk about it here. So, let's begin.
Hey guys, TS over here. So they say that the moon is about 4.5 billion years old, and that's how conventionally believed and taught in schools.
First, I feel like I should point out that it's not just the moon that is 4.5 billion years old. It's pretty much all the major moons and planets in our solar system. Maybe some of the smaller moons that orbit around Jupiter and whatnot, maybe a little bit younger. But pretty much everything is about the same age.
Uh, According to the Physics Forum, and estimating the planetary cooling time for the moon, uh, it's supposed to take 2.5 billion years to cool off. So from it's hot to cold, completely cooling off. Uh, According to the calculation, it took 2.5 billion years. Now, the problem is that recent discovery from NASA revealed that the moon is contracting, meaning the moon is not dead, meaning it's still alive, still active. So, what does this mean? Contraction means is still cooling off. All right. So if it took 2.5 billion years to cool off, it means it should have been cooled off already. If the Earth is 4.5 years old, billion years old, and it should not be active, dead by now. But the fact that the moon is still contracting, still cooling off, suggests only one thing. The moon is not 4.5 billion years old, but at the most 2.5 billion years old.
No, what it actually shows is that you didn't read the entire page. You only read the first post and you thought your job was done. If you had kept reading, you would have seen that people proposed that the model that he proposed is not fully accurate because it does not take into account all the variations and different factors that actually would change the cooling of a planet, which I'm going to discuss in a second. Let's look at the moons for a moment, shall we? We have Earth's moon on the left, and all the way to the right, in successive order, we have Pluto's moon. Now, if we were to follow ThickShades' proposition that everything should have cooled off by 2.5 billion years, we should see that all of the big planets should be active while all these smaller planets should not be. However, we end up seeing small, tiny moons like Phobos, Enceladus, Miranda, Charon, all very active. Then we see giant moons like Ganymede that are inactive. And then we see big ones just like Callisto and Titan that are under scientific debate if they're geologically active at all. If this was as simple as he proposes this to be, why are we seeing such discrepancies? Since all of the planets and moons of our solar system have the same approximate age of about 4.5 billion years, why do we see some planets and moons that are still very active? And why do we see some that are not, that are of various sizes? Well, there's quite a few things that have to do with that. First off, we have to do with the rotation of the planet or the moon, the tidal friction that actually happens from the interaction between the moon and the planet that actually can increase or decrease the amount of heat that stays trapped on the planet. We have the magnetic fields that actually will change the temperature. Outgassing of materials, basically the materials that are inside the Earth that actually kind of seep out and leave the atmosphere. That actually will change the inner and outer core composition of the different planets, which again changes the different cooling times for each of those planets. Then you have a process called chemical fractionation, in which the heavier, denser materials sink towards the bottom, towards the core of the Earth, while the less dense materials rise to the top. And there's a friction that forms as those two materials trying to rub past each other, and that generates heat as well. However, these tend to be smaller reasons. However, as I said before, it's the actual composition of the planets itself that actually direct how long the cooling process is. For example, let's look at Earth for a moment. Basically, up to 90% of the Earth's heat that's generated is fueled by the decaying isotopes of potassium-40, uranium-238, 235, and thorium-232 that are sitting within the mantle. However, if we go out into deeper space, we find that the cores of the planets and moons tend to be made from lighter elements, thus they'll actually have less fission heating and they'll actually cool down quicker. This is why we see certain planets like Ganymede from Jupiter's moon system that actually have no activity. So, to put it bluntly, old boy is wrong because he fails to consider other sources than just the size of the planet to determine how long the cooling will be.
Now, there's one thing that we need to take into consideration, and that is the lunar recession. The rate of which the Earth-Moon distance is increasing, presently increasing by about 4 centimeters a year. And this would have been even greater in the past. The moon should have been actually in physical contact with the Earth's surface about 1.4 billion years ago, according to calculation. But that's not even possible. I mean, because if the moon is so close to the Earth, it will destroy the moon, or even boil up the water on Earth. So this further suggests that the moon is less than 1.4 billion years old. Definitely not 4.5 billion years old.
ThickShades is correct in saying that the moon is receding from the Earth at about 3.8 centimeters or 1.5 inches per year. However, the Earth is about 239,000 miles away, or about 15 billion inches away. Given that rate, it will be about 10 billion years before it separates. Creationists do cover their ass by saying, oh no, the recession rate was much faster before, but now it's kind of leveled off. I wonder if the flood has anything to do with that. But is it true? Could the recession of the moon from the Earth have been faster before? What does science have to say? Creationists are correct when they say that when the Earth is closer to the moon, it affects the tidal friction, and that which changes the recession rate of the moon from the Earth. However, we also have to contend with the way that the water would hit the varying land masses. Their configurations actually decrease the tidal friction. Now, according to computer modeling, based on how the continents were configured at this time, there was actually shown to be less recession. On top of that, according to Kepler's laws, when the moon was much closer to the Earth, it was orbiting much faster, which varied the tidal frequency. Being less tidal frequency, lower the recession rate. At some point in the moon's orbit, there was a point in which basically the Earth and the moon were in sync with their rotation. There would be no energy dissipation and no recession whatsoever. So at this point, even then, the moon's recession would have been slower. However, all of this evidence could be, I could just be talking. What proof do we really have of a slower recession rate from the moon? So science comes to the rescue again in the form of tidal rhythmites, or tidally laminated sediments. So basically, you have yourself tides coming up and down on the shore, right? Dropping off sediments, doing its thing. Scientists can use that to record the velocity and the range of the tides, providing a method so they can measure how strong the tides were back then. So using that, they showed that over 650 million years ago, the recession rate was about 2 centimeters. And then from about 650 million years to 2 billion years ago, the rate was at about 1.2 centimeters per year. So creationists, even if you disagree with the 650 million to 2 billion years difference and how the recession rates have changed over that time, the fact is the rate is actually much slower and was slower before. Now, let's talk about the future. The future actually will get to a point where basically the moon and the Earth are actually going to be synchronized once again. And then no further recession will occur. And now that's just a little bit of a side note, doesn't really change anything, but I found that kind of interesting. So there you have it, folks. The creationists, much like ThickShades, are wrong. This is the Atheist Chef signing off. Peace.